Thanks for watching this special edition of Stories of the Mountain West. I'm Joanna Canals. The 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks has brought back memories. In the next half hour, you'll see 4 unique perspectives and how 9/11 still affects their daily lives. A part of the World Trade Center destroyed on 9/11 10 years ago will become a permanent part of the Air Force Academy. The National Homeland Defense Foundation sent a girder, one of the original support beams of the Twin Towers, to the Academy. Now, to keep the spirit of 9/11 alive, base officials decided to build a monument around it. I was able to attend the dedication ceremony, and the monument will be a constant reminder of loss and hope.
We all remember where we were and what we were doing on the morning of September 11th, 2001.
I was 11 years old in 6th grade.
For me personally, it took several days to realize what just happened.
And no matter how many years pass, the memories of 9/11 are indelible for all of us.
10 years after the most horrific attack on our nation, the next generation of Air Force Academy defenders remember and vow to never forget. And this piece of steel will strengthen the resolve.
Nobody knows right where it came from, but we know it was a floor beam. And as such, the poignancy and the meaning of this piece of metal is real and inherent.
This 300-pound steel girder once held up the World Trade Center. It represents the violence, loss, and spirit of resilience. It is held up by a 7-ton granite base in the shape of the Pentagon. The pillars represent the towers.
And they collected them all over a period of years.
Don Addy of the Homeland Defense Foundation helped acquire the piece for the Academy.
When people see artifacts like this, they're moved by them. They're taken back to their memories of that day, of the horrible tragedy that occurred, and it brings their sensitivities to the surface. And I think that the fact that we memorialize that day in a way like this is very significant to people.
This memorial is now a permanent part of the base. It stands in the cadet living area, serving as a daily reminder of the sacrifice made for American freedom.
So you wanted to place this memorial in a spot where the cadets would see it every day. When they're walking to and from their classes, they pass by it.
Remembering 9/11 is what brought many cadets here to defend their nation.
The events of September 11th, 2001 will not soon be forgotten.
Cadet First Class Samantha Reap addressed her colleagues at the dedication ceremony for the steel girder. She says the events that happened 10 years ago when she was a 6th grader sculpted her future.
I think about where I was then as, an 11-year-old, and now I'm a 21-year-old, and it's good to know that I've got fellow cadets out there that are willing to dedicate their life to this, and not just cadets, but people that are enlisting here and there all over the country.
If you were to speak to the sea of 4,500 cadets on base, many would tell you it is their generation's responsibility to defend and protect. No one has set the bar higher than the first responders of 9/11. Many of them came to the base to contribute to the dedication ceremony.
Please give them a warm welcome.
New York Fire Department Battalion Chief Stephen Fitzgerald never knew what he would encounter that day 10 years ago.
The smell of steel, certainly a reminder. It was eerily quiet. You'd think it was very violent and loud, and it wasn't. I often relate it back to, after a snowstorm, how the snow muffles all the sound, and that's exactly what it was like.
The piece of steel from the World Trade Center represents the many lives he couldn't save on that fateful day.
That morning, the amount of steel that was just, we called it the pile. It was just a pile of steel. Knowing full well how many folks were underneath it was a little mind-boggling. Like we said earlier, a little tough to grasp. But it's great that it's here. It's representing the violence that people have, people can perform. It resembles the loss and the pain. And it's here for the folks who are going to be leading this nation in our response to what happened that day.
The armies of 9/11 will now pass the baton to the next generation of defenders, and the tradition will continue on to the next generation, no matter how many years pass after 9/11.
Today, the spirit and fortitude of these cadets serve as the foundation of our future. I'm confident that this generation of future officers, they stand prepared to defend and lead our nation, protecting those principles that keep us all free.
Most everyone remembers where they were the day they saw our country under attack on 9/11. 10 years later, the emotional hardship still resonates deep with the University of Wyoming head football coach. He vowed to keep the memory alive by honoring the men and women of the armed forces at every home game, so nobody forgets the cost of American freedom. Brett Brown has their touching story.
It's almost like a funeral for me every day. I'm sure a lot of people think the same thing. A lot of people go through their daily lives and they know it's back there, it's in their subconscious, but they don't think about it every day. To me, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about 9/11.
I was at the University of Missouri, and we're just getting ready to go into a staff meeting, and one of the other coaches called me in his office, and he had on ABC or NBC or one of those channels, and a plane had just crashed into one of the Twin Towers. And at the time, we just thought it was, an accident, and a plane had hit. Had no idea, exactly what it was. Went into the staff meeting, came back out, and another one had hit. And obviously, the rest of the day was kind of a blur. It's a morning I'll never forget.
The tragic events of September 11th affected every American in a different way. Some, like Dave Hamilton, were called to battle. Others, like Dave Christensen, tried to cope by continuing their normal routines.
I remember going out recruiting sometime after that and landing in San Diego and walking through the airport, and there were National Guards with AK-47s. And it was a sight I never thought I'd see living in the United States of America.
When he received his first head coaching job 8 years later, one of Christensen's top priorities was to develop a tradition within his program to honor the men and women who have been risking their lives while fighting for our country. And he did so by naming his special teams after the Army Special Forces Unit.
We started calling them Special Forces from the day I got here. We don't look at this as, the job that they're doing. Theirs is life and death, ours is a game. But there are a lot of things that are in common with what we do with our Special Forces, and as far as the size of the unit, the commitment, the selection of people that are in it. The Special Forces caught wind of that and developed a relationship with us.
And that's where the lifelong friendship started between the coach and the Green Beret.
They train as they fight, same as we do. They kid up before they actually get ready to play a game, or what I consider going to battle. And so they build to try and establish an integrity system to where the guys need to develop a brotherhood and a sense of ownership to each other. It's just the same thing as what Special Forces is founded on. We fight for, not just for God and country and family, and we fight for our brothers in arms, we fight for our unit, and we fight for our way of life.
The first Special Forces units were adopted in 1952 at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Nearly 60 years later, they still protect our freedom. The soldiers are described as team players rather than individual heroes. But to Coach Christensen, Dave Hamilton is all that and a lot more.
I care, deeply about, Hambone, and we've developed a great friendship, relationship over the last 3 years, and you learn a lot about, what our servicemen are when you meet Dave Hamilton. He's a true warrior. He's a very, very dedicated, loyal person. I sleep better at night knowing that we have a whole army full of guys like Dave Hamilton.
Now, talking to Dave yesterday, I asked him what you meant to him, and Dave's like, he means the world to me. He's a warrior, he's a terrific human being. He sleeps better at night knowing there's people like you protecting our freedom. What's that mean to you?
Wow. What should I do? Get me upset here, man? Feeling's mutual, Dave. It really is. Wow. That breaks my heart, man. It makes me feel good. Yeah, I love Dave to death. I have no words, man. You know, he's just, like I say, he's a big brother to me.
Christensen's admiration and bond with Dave Hamilton has trickled on down to his players. His impact on the team can be felt simply from the words of the guys in the locker room.
And this guy has gone on 5 tours. He's risked his life. He's been in numerous surgeries. And when you have somebody like that is still caring for a program like the University of Wyoming and still having us in his thoughts while he's in a tough time recovering from his surgery, you can't say enough about that, about his character and about the kind of person that he is. And it's an honor just to know that we have people like that defending our country.
Over the summer, Hamilton underwent numerous procedures for injuries he suffered while answering the call of duty. Surgery so serious, they took him away from the team and one of his closest friends.
He's went through some hardships this year. He's had some surgeries to take care of his back and spine from an injury he had serving when he fell out of a helicopter. And you know, he was down in San Antonio having surgery, and his only goal was to recover and be able to run out with our football team on September 3rd.
I don't care if you're special forces, if you play ball, you can get hurt in a car wreck, you know. There's nothing more, I guess, demoralizing and humbling to kind of get your sails knocked out of you from an injury. And it inspires me to get better, to be stronger, because if I'm showing a sign of weakness, then, you know, it doesn't pass. And I know guys know different, but it makes me feel like I'm not doing my best. So that's why, even after this injury now, it's kind of killing me because it's taking a little bit longer to heal than what I expected.
It's the biggest thing in the world for him, you know, and he just wanted to make sure I kept letting the guys know that, you know, he'll be with us when we open the season.
And true to his mission, Hamilton was there.
Another firefight, you know the deal. Knock this one out, man.
He even joined the team in their pregame prayer.
Father, art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
The same words that many Americans held close to their heart after the tragedies that brought Hamilton and the Cowboys together nearly 10 years later.
All right, guys, you know what time it is, right? Yeah, let's do this.
Hell yeah, baby. Great news, man. Back from death. We got Hamilton's ass running out with us tonight.
We're going to do this. All right, let's do this.
We have one goal, and that's to run out with your ass on the 3rd. I told you guys 2 weeks ago he'd be here, and here he is.
Back by his brother's side.
I'm a Cowboy for life now.
Many Americans can say they knew where they were when 9/11 happened, but only a small percentage can say they were there. Boise State President Bob Custra and his wife went to Manhattan to celebrate their anniversary on the fateful day 10 years ago. It is a memory that comes with many mixed emotions. Dave Harbison sat down with them.
I'm walking down the street and I look up and there's a plane going over. It's a 737, or it looked like something like that. And I didn't think much of it. And then I thought, wait a minute, I've walked this area before. I don't think it's a flight pattern.
The Custras were in New York to celebrate their wedding anniversary on September 10th and to visit their son Matt, who is in the banking industry and living in Manhattan.
We would love to go up to the top of the World Trade Center. This was Monday afternoon. So we went in and we kind of went through the queue, the line of people to get tickets, and noticed as we just purchased our tickets, these tickets, that it was pouring down rain. And, you know, being Chicagoans, native Chicagoans, we know that when you go to Sears Tower, if it's pouring down rain, you might as well forget it because you're not going to see a thing. So we asked the gentleman, and he said, you're right, you won't see anything. But he said, your tickets are good for tomorrow.
And so with the weather not cooperating, the Custras went out for an anniversary dinner and made plans to return to the World Trade Center the next morning, having no way of knowing the tragic and historic events that were about to unfold.
I was supposed to meet him at 10 after 9, and of course the first plane hit at 1:45 at 8:45.
Deciding against getting an early start that morning quite likely saved their lives.
I remember very distinctly saying to him, oh, he ran in and said, Kath, a plane just went into the World Trade Center. And I said, oh my God, a small plane. And he said, no, a commercial plane. So by the time he got home, he knew that it was a commercial airliner. And I think immediately thought that it was not something that was an accident even before the second plane hit.
Right. But as events transpired in the minutes and hours and days that followed, Bob and Kathy Custra found themselves in the midst of the chaos and confusion after the attack on the World Trade Center.
What I think struck us was so much of what we saw in the aftermath of being witnesses to those buildings falling down, of seeing just coming up 6th Street, a flood of people. And they were the lucky ones. They were the ones who had been evacuated from the North Tower.
And the uncertainty of the situation, not knowing if more attacks might be coming, how extensive the damage might be, and how and when they could leave, led to some troubling times.
We suddenly realized that there was a possibility we were trapped in this city. And there were rumors floating around at that time that they were going to flood the island, and so everybody was gone. So the first thing we realized is we needed food. We didn't have any food. We had plans for all these nice restaurants. Well, those were all gone. So we went down to this really fancy market and got in line with a lot of other people. And I think that's probably the scariest moment for me, was just going through that line, realizing that you're picking up your last meal. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, there was really no way of telling. In the meantime, these jets are flying overhead, and they had come in now for cover to make sure this doesn't happen again. And while I guess we understood that, it was scary as all get out to have these fighter jets over your head at the same time. Then after things settled down, we got our food, then we decided, well, let's try to get out of here.
And the dawning of a new day on September 12th just served to underscore the devastation and heartbreak that the attacks had caused.
Bob and I just started walking, and we walked for 8 or 9 hours that day. We walked to Midtown, and then all along 5th Avenue, all those big churches, St. Patrick's and the large Episcopal Church, they were all doors open, continuous services going on, and people just going in and out of services all day on Wednesday. You saw fire station after fire station where you saw the pictures, I'm sure, that was just, the entrances were just packed with flowers, and they lost almost everybody in their company.
The Custras were able to find space on a train out of Penn Station on September 13th and eventually returned home. But the impact of the scenes they had witnessed continued to trouble them for some time.
You would wake up and have visions, images and certain things that you would see about people. People who were putting those signs up crying, those are the images I'll never get out of my mind. Where you could see a family, you could see a young mother and kids, and they were putting up pictures of their dad all over town wondering if he had been saved, and everybody was doing the same thing, and that was heartbreaking.
In those days, it was a scary thought that how close we came to it. But it's pretty hard to spend too much time thinking about that when all you can think of is looking down 6th Avenue and seeing throngs of people like it's a Godzilla movie fleeing from the towers. And then you start seeing the signs on every single light post and standard there is in the community with pictures of loved ones. Then you go to the hospital to try to give blood, as we did, and then you see that they're not taking anybody because there's nobody who survived. We reflect on the fact that this is a country that no matter how powerful and strong we are, we're also very vulnerable. And the best way we can mark it is with eternal vigilance. The best way we can mark it is never forget that we're still living in a very dangerous world. And it's a world that you constantly have to be on alert.
Years ago, the 9/11 attacks made Americans congregate in public places all over the United States to slowly process the unbelievable. Moments after the attacks a decade ago, people from all over the world gathered in the home of the rebels in Las Vegas, just steps away from campus at the New York Hotel and Casino. It may seem an uncommon location to show respect to the heroes of 9/11, but the familiar Strip trademark created a powerful setting for one of the largest memorials out west. 3 members of the UNLV community who were also first responders at Ground Zero will be frequent visitors of that memorial. Molly Sullivan has the story.
Meet UNLV police officer Paul Velez. He provides excellence in protection and service to the university community with assignments that include working every home football and basketball game for the Rebels.
I love sports. I'm a sports fan my whole life, and to have the privilege to be on the field with the football team and to be sitting behind the bench, you know, with the basketball team. It's unbelievable. You know, this last tournament I was pretty much standing under the basket while they cut down the net. I've never experienced that before. It was great.
And get this, Velez is part of his own championship team. Enter Officer Bernard Cole and Assistant Chief of Police Sandy Seda. All three gentlemen are native New Yorkers, and before moving to Las Vegas to work at UNLV, they were all longtime members of the New York Police Department, with their toughest opponent on September 11th, 2001.
Actually, that was my first day of vacation. I was supposed to be off for 10 days in a row. And I got up in the morning and I put the news on, and I saw that the first plane had already struck. And I was thinking to myself, you know, what was wrong with this pilot? How do you not see the World Trade Center? And as I'm watching the news, bang, the second plane hits. So it's basically I just got dressed and ran into work.
And I was working at police headquarters, which is a stone's throw away from the Trade Towers. Standing outside of the building and saw what happened. And at first it was, my mind said it's not happening, even though my eyes were saying it is happening.
You know, they say that time heals, and I can tell you that my thoughts and memories of that day are as vivid today as they were 10 years ago.
Nearly 3,000 miles away, 9/11 is forever a part of the hearts and minds of Las Vegans. Just moments after the terrorist attacks, people from around the world gravitated to the northwest corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana Avenue at the New York Hotel and Casino.
It's a warm feeling inside my heart every time I see that, and I'm reminded of just how lucky I am, how lucky we all are.
I walked by and I saw all the memorial that they did in front of New York with the T-shirts and pictures, just like I had seen at Ground Zero when everybody hung the pictures of their lost loved ones and T-shirts, and it looked like, actually like they picked it up from New York and put it there. So it was very moving to me that even over here in Las Vegas, people were, you know, united with us back in New York.
I think it shows how deeply 9/11 affected everybody, even people in Las Vegas who weren't personally there. You know, this is a reminder of how it touched all Americans.
And just steps away at Lead Library on the campus of UNLV, alum Troy Gillette created a sculpture with some help from his fellow rebels named The Common Thread, which incorporates many of the thousands of T-shirts that were left at the New York Hotel and Casino Memorial.
This piece is about what makes people human and what kind of ties everyone together.
And we were all able to rally together, and we didn't know each other, no one knew each other, and we all had this one thread, this connection that drew us together.
The feelings will last into the future when we have young people participate and show that kind of respect, and that it won't be forgotten.
A decade full of memories, and at its core, a day that will never be forgotten.
It's a new day. The events of September 11th woke us all up, and we should always remember that day and not forget what happened. There are some evil people out there who are absolutely committed to the cause, their cause, and we've got to get the word out. We've got to let them know that we are equally committed in preserving our life, our way of life, and our freedoms.
This UNLV Dream Team will be back on the Rebels sidelines for home games this year, and their commitment to making Las Vegas a better place to live continues long after the final play. I'm Molly Sullivan reporting for The Mountain.
Thanks for watching this special edition of Stories of the Mountain West. We hope the personal stories we've showed will honor those who lost their lives and those who continue to defend our freedom.